Hello, and welcome to this episode of Experience Matters, our series exploring customer experience and employee experience and everything in between, and the roles that both CX and EX play in an organization's success. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co, and thanks so much for joining me today. Our discussion today is going to center on the increased focus of customer experience automation powered by AI. Shocker, an AI conversation. But we're also going to talk about the critical role that data plays in that equation and how collectively this can help us drive better business decisions. I'm joined today by Daniel Zib, who's the Global VP of AI and Analytics for Verint, for what I know will be a fantastic conversation. Daniel, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So to set the stage a bit, while of course AI dominates every conversation these days, AI cannot deliver reliable outcomes without data. And getting arms around data and the massive amounts of both structured and unstructured data that organizations possess remains one of the biggest challenges across the board for customers. Research shows that companies prioritizing getting their data foundation and practices right before diving into their AI initiatives are the organizations that are seeing success with AI. So Daniel, I know this is something you live and breathe on a daily basis. I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Excellent. So before we get started, will you indulge me, please, and tell me just a little bit about your career backstory, the journey that you've been on these last 20 years or so?
Okay. I would love to. So the last 20 years, I've been actually here at Verint. I've been here for about 23 years. I joined in 2002. And you mentioned data. I've always been fascinated by data, especially unstructured data. I did, before I joined Verint, I spent years in image processing, video analytics. What now you have on your phone, Google Maps, all those things, was pretty, amazing 23 years ago. Yeah. And I was fascinated, but not just the data itself, but what you can do, what you can create from this data, what you can learn from this data. And when I joined Verint in 2002, the first thing we had a lot of, Verint started by digitizing voice recordings. This call may be recorded. It used to be recorded on tapes. Yeah. We digitized that. And once you digitize, first of all, it saves money. It's much more secure. It's much more effective. But now you have access to unstructured data. It's very rich. So the first project when I joined into a team that was called Advanced Technology Group, and we were supposed to invent stuff, leveraging the assets that the company had. And the first thing I looked at is we had actually video data. We did that too, but I really gravitated towards the voice data and what we can do. And the first thing said, let's just transcribe it and then index it and start seeing what we find from all these treasure troves of calls. There's so much insight in these calls that were just right. The vast majority of them were never listened to. And that was what really fascinated me. And we were really invented and brought to market speech analytics, which today is a multi-billion-dollar market. Verint sold over $1 billion of this. And I think that's been an amazing journey, but it started from the data. Just, what can we learn from this rich data? And that was the beginning of my journey, but it has evolved into much broader. Today, I'm global VP of our AI and analytics, and with the age of AI, there's even much more you can do with this data. So it's even more exciting.
What did you do before you joined Verint?
I worked for a small startup company that was in the mobile internet space, and eventually that company ended up building the mission and control system for the Iron Dome defense system. Oh, wow. So different, but it's about analyzing data, really. Same, and I was in the Air Force and did image processing there, and I did some consulting work for large companies on creativity, innovation. Different things.
Nice. Well, let's talk more about data, Daniel. And as I said in the intro, and I know that you absolutely agree with me on this, data is quite literally the fuel that AI runs on. And the more accurate that data, of course, the better AI outcomes an organization can have. So talk with me, if you would, about what you see as you talk with customers and prospects about their AI initiatives and the challenges that they're having on the data front, especially as it relates to gathering quality data.
Yeah. So I think I'll talk about AI in the context of enterprises. We're all experiencing ChatGPT in our daily lives. Everybody's using it and loving it. At the enterprise level, it's more complex because, of course, you can use ChatGPT to improve your writing style or your emails, but it's much more powerful than that. But to make it powerful, you can leverage the models that big companies are building. You don't have to build your own models, but you need to leverage your own data. AI is only as good as the data you feed it. If you want to ask a general question on the internet, you don't need unique data because that's already there. But if you want to ask about your organization, what's driving your cost or what's driving your sales or your internal performance, you need to leverage your own data. And that's where it gets tricky. Organizations, for the most part, have this data. They've been capturing, they're recording calls, they're capturing surveys, they have performance data, but it's dispersed. It's also sensitive. So some people say, well, this is my data. I want to share it. I don't want to share it publicly. So there's governance issue. There's dispersed, different systems issue. So the reality is that that's slowing down leveraging AI. And we're hearing, AI hasn't really we haven't seen the outcomes we'd like. And a lot of that stems from data and access to it and leveraging it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, as data analytics, you've been working in data analytics for 20 plus years, right? It's been around for a very long time. This is not new, right? But in this age of AI, data analytics has become more important than ever before. And I think it's very fair to say that AI in general, Gen AI in particular, are really transforming data analytics. Yeah. Why is this such a big deal, especially in the customer experience space, Daniel?
Yeah. So, somebody recently asked me, why is, similar to this question, why is the AI or ChatGPT so important? We had Google before. What's the difference?
Right.
So my analogy was Google was transformative because imagine they basically build a huge library and put all the books, quote unquote, all the, books that were public, not just books, but any data that was digitized on the internet, they put into one big library and you could access it. You had to pass to access and ask a question and pull any book you wanted. That's transformative, considering that before that you had to actually go to a physical library and it only had certain books. Yeah. So it unified all that data collected. Again, not all human data, but anything that was public with the internet combined with that. What AI or generative AI specifically, and it's specifically unique to unstructured data, which is like books or images or videos and that, because it's now not what we have a library, because a library, I still need to read the books to know something. And just like you had to go and look at the websites, but now with Gen AI, you have a person sort that has actually read all those books. And you can ask that person questions like, of the top books on behavioral psychology, what are the top 3 recommendations that have had the biggest impact? You couldn't do that before with Google. You could have asked, give me the top 3 books and read them and figure that out yourself. But
and I think that also the difference here, Daniel, is that, search engine optimization, the more you spent to show up earlier in search results, you weren't necessarily getting the best. You were getting the responses of people who were better at search engine optimization, and there's a very big difference there.
There is. There's always some bias, even today within in models. There's some bias, but you're right. Because we can now access not just the top 3 links, but the top 500 links and analyze all those, I can get a much broader, less biased insight potentially. So that is one thing. But the fundamental difference is I have access to somebody who's read all those books. That's very different than access to a library where I have to read all the books. I'm not saying you don't have to read books, and knowledge is still very important, but it is a breakthrough in terms of what you can do. And now we apply that to the enterprise. It's as if somebody has ran through and listened to every single conversation we've ever had with every customer we've had, read through every service ticket we've ever done, every marketing document, every knowledge article. There's nobody in the enterprise that has ever done that, but now there is. The Gen AI, if you give it the right data, you can do so many things with that. And that's what's so transformative about Gen AI.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? And it also amazing is the rapid, the rapid development of this AI landscape. And I always think about the fact that I'm very grateful to have just been fundamentally wired for change. I love change. I love experimentation. I love new. And I love picking things apart. I love solving puzzles, all that sort of thing. And we are at a time when change is a given, and rapid change is a given of our workplace, our life reality. And for people who don't really inherently love change, and many humans don't, it's a time to change. time to change that mindset.
I agree. And change has been a constant throughout, the last few decades for sure.
Right.
But I think the pace of change is a step function. That's true with how fast AI and generative AI is developing, but how much impact it could apply. So I think organizations, you hit on a really important thing. One is comfortable with change and leveraging the data assets that they have, which are the most important data assets for leveraging generative AI and agentic AI and the things that are coming. And that's a mindset, because people tend to think that, we have years, we can slowly change.
Right.
Organizations especially, but also personally, I think we need to start thinking of change as something that we need to adapt to at a different scale, a different pace.
Yeah.
And I think this will be profound on a personal level and definitely at a corporate level.
Yeah, I think change and learning, continuous learning, those two things, really embracing change and adaptability and agility, whether from a personal standpoint or a business standpoint, actually both. And then really understanding that continuous learning is the reality today. And none of us know it all.
Yeah.
None of us can possibly know it all, but that exercise of constantly, regularly being, learning new things and adapting to what it is you're learning and integrating what it is you're learning. And I think those are business lessons that really have not been foundational in, certainly in my career path.
Yeah. And I think the learning that we need to do now is learning the tools. These tools are evolving. There's many more tools than ChatGPT, and they can do many different things.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing for organizations, to open up and start using those internally. First of all, it's a huge productivity gain, but also just to learn. It's just like learning how to read and write is very important when that was invented. Those who learned that first had a leg up. I think that's the goal of both personal is I spend a lot of time learning and exploring and trying out different things on a personal level, and try to engage both within Verint and for our customers to try to bring them AI that generates outcomes very quickly, so they can experience that and see, wow, I didn't know we could do that. Now let's try something else. I think that's really the mindset of we have to do it fast. We have to learn by deploying things that either work or fail. If you fail, at least fail fast, but it's also a learning experience.
And don't hold out for perfection.
Exactly. It's going to get better anyways over time. So perfection may come by itself.
It is. Daniel, one of the things that I really love about Verint and the Verint story is, and, as we were talking a couple of minutes ago, you made mention a couple of times you spoke of AI as kind of a person that is working with you. Mm-hmm. And I remember being at a Verint event recently and listening to your senior executives talk about what the company's doing and customers and all that sort of thing. And your team kept using the word bots. And I thought that was so interesting, because I kind of felt like the time for bots was, 5 years ago. We were talking about, a robot for every person and, that sort of thing. And I was very curious as to why that terminology was still being so widely used by the team at Verint. And I got the answer to that question. I got to spend some time with your executive team, and it was so simple. It was that we find that in many instances, AI is scary for our customers. Mm-hmm. And it's this big thing, and it's this transformative thing, and it's a lot to take in, and it's massive change to understand at scale. And so we found that if we could talk about our solutions as a bot to help you do this, or a bot that does this, and you kind of talked about it as a person, which actually makes it even more comfortable, right? A robot person, right? Your friend that's sitting on your shoulder watching what you're doing. And I think that when you can think about AI-powered technology in that way, it not only makes it less scary, but it sort of humanizes the experience as well, and I really like that. And I thought that was such a brilliant move by the team at Verint to get to speak in a language that your customers are comfortable with. I mean, that really is, I think, how you get interest, how you get people to take this leap of faith, and how you get and spur adoption.
Yeah, I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
to really not make it scary and too big. So
Yeah.
I don't have to implement AI. I just have to adopt a bot into my team that
Yeah.
helps me, just like ChatGPT can help me on a daily basis doing, emails.
Yeah.
Each we have many bots, over 40, 50 bots, and each bot
Right.
does one thing very, very well. And it just helps automate a certain even micro workflow, even not necessarily an entire workflow. And
Right.
CX automation is many, many things. It's not one point solution. That's why we need a platform and many bots.
Yeah.
But it's much more comfortable to adopt the bot that automatically summarizes a call, or automatically gives me guidance on something, or
Yeah.
automatically gives me the context when I get a call that's transferred from an IVA. So those are specific bots that do one thing very well. It's easy. And it's also very easy to measure because it's supposed to do one thing. I can easily measure if it's reducing
Right.
my handle time, or reducing
Yeah.
my cost, or increasing my sales conversion rates. And it's much easier for organizations to adopt. The data set is focused, the bot, the target is focused. I can measure it.
Yeah.
We have dashboards that show you how much it's doing. And over time, then I think of it as more of like a Lego set. I buy one thing, just a car, and then I buy the boat, and then I buy the
Yeah.
house, and now these all connect together. So over time, you add other bots, and they talk to each other and connect to each other. And then you get to the kind of the agentic world where these bots can automate broader, more complex issues. But you start small and you
Yeah.
expand, and that's how you learn. That's how you see outcomes rather than big investments without an outcome, which is why some companies are kind of stuck. So it has been a very, intentional, strategic, and we call them bot because first, today people use the word agents in the contact center, or agent means a human.
It does.
It'd be very confusing. Are we talking about a human agent or
It
an
does.
artificial intelligent agent? So that's why we didn't call them agents, but you can refer to them as AI agents. But we
Yeah.
found that the bots, and we have an image of it, and it feels like comfortable. There's even a stuffy bot. So
Yeah.
it's about releasing the fear and seeing the value, getting the outcomes, and then over time building the full agentic enterprise.
Yeah, no, I love it. And like I said, I really thought it was a brilliant move. And I have so much respect for business leaders making technology decisions.
Yep.
And when you make a decision like we're going to work with Verint or whomever for our AI initiatives, for our CX initiatives, and it is scary. And for that person or that committee making that decision, you're putting your neck on the line.
Right.
And so I think that when you can make it that journey something that is not fearful, and it's something that like you said, the Lego block set sort of thing where it's composable, you can slide in what you need. And
Right.
I think that I was really, really impressed with that. So I wanted to mention that. So Daniel, we've touched on structured and unstructured data. I want to talk now about behavioral data.
Yeah.
I believe that's something that you point to as a unique part of the Verint value proposition, and that you're able to collect and generate and leverage some really unique behavioral data. Will you walk me through what you're doing there and why it's such an important part of the equation for your customers?
Absolutely. I think behavioral data is the most important data for CX automation. So if you're trying to improve the customer experience while reducing cost, and while improving revenue and retention, all those things, you need the unique data assets. So CRM has some data, CDP, there's different data sets, transactional data. But if I want to understand if a customer had a great experience and why, and if they had a bad experience and why, we need behavioral data. So behavioral data has really three key components. There is the actual interactions. If you actually spoke to somebody or emailed somebody or text somebody, that unstructured or semi-structured, the conversation itself with all the metadata, who you spoke to, when did you speak to, which department, how long the call was, all those pieces are structured in addition to the actual conversation. That is what happened. That's the real truth. That's where the real insights are. But there's also the survey data, so the experience. If you have customers rate that, like an NPS score or any kind of other survey, would you recommend us, or your effort? Sometimes we can infer a lot of things, your sentiment, the resolution levels. So there's the experience data, and then there's the actual performance data. What did it cost us as the company to do this? The agent who spoke, how much do we have to pay that agent? How well are they performing? How compliant are they? they are all pieces of what we call behavioral data. It's a combination of a lot of unstructured and semi-structured data.
Okay.
And organizations have this data. In many cases, it's already inside the Verint platform, but even if they don't have Verint, they have it. It's just so dispersed in different systems with different owners, they can't effectively leverage it without a unification piece.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So some of your some of things like the exact transcription bot, the Genie bot, you've got speech analytics, quality bot, wrap-up bot, real-time coaching bot. Do all of these play a role here in what you're able to do with this
Absolutely.
behavioral data?
Most of these bots leverage what we call our data hub that brings together all the behavioral data, and that is at the heart of our platform. That
Okay.
data is first brought together, unified, and enriched. So exact transcription bot, for example, takes the call recordings, all these conversations we're having, and transcribes it with the most accurate transcription in this space, because transcription is been a challenge because when I started, it was roughly 50% accurate at best. Now we're what we call single word digit error rate. So that means it's almost perfect, almost as good as a human manually transcribing it. But these are calls, they're multi-speakers, multi-languages. It's a challenging environment. We've gotten to a model that is very, very accurate. So we really know exactly what was spoken. Now that we have that, for example, the Genie bot can analyze those calls and tell you what's driving customer churn, what's driving, questions about the website. Why are people even calling and not using our self-service channels? Our quality bot can automatically score all those calls based on these transcriptions, and I don't have to manually score them. Our wrap-up bot can summarize the conversation and give you a summary to put in your CRM. So all these other bots use exact transcription bot and other engines and pieces that are part of and we also use this data to build our bots. Our AI Vinci leverages data to build bots and train the bots and adjust them so they're most relevant. So really it stems from, as we started, with the right data and accurate data.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Vinci, and I know that the Verint platform is open and it's built around that behavioral data hub that we just talked about.
Yeah.
This is what powers Vinci, which is an integral part of the superpowers that Verint brings for customers. Walk me through a little bit more, if you would, Daniel, on how that works and why this is such an integral part of the Verint platform.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, without the right data, without accurate, unified data, it's very hard to leverage AI, at least in this area of CX. So I think bringing together this data, making sure it's accurate, making sure that it's, all these bots self-train. So that's why you need a platform, because a lot of people say, well, I have a point solution for summarization, and I have a quality bot here, and I have the problem is they all have different data. They don't share the data. So they quickly get out of whack, and AI can drift. The model could be good today, but the best guidance for sales might be changing almost every day now that we're in this world of rapid change. So having recent, accurate data that's brought together that all the bots use is critical. And that's, I think, separates from companies that have tried a point solution and then another point solution, over time, they just can't manage it and the data gets out of whack, to a strategy of a CX platform that has the data at the center and all the bots share that data and connect. It's more cost effective. It generates better, faster AI outcomes. So I think it's critical. It's really the heart of our platform. And I think that's been our strategy rather than just selling point solutions.
Yeah. And, speaking of those point solutions, I think that, most of us on a daily basis kind of pop in between all of these different point solutions, right? Maybe I use this for transcription or I use this for this. And some of it is, I will admit that, let me use collaboration platforms as an example, right?
Yeah.
All day long, I'm using Zoom, Teams, and WebEx, okay? Google Meet. And so, all of these companies, all of these vendors would very much like if I would completely and totally live inside of their platform.
Yeah.
But I, as a consumer, as a user, I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah.
And so, I like I have my preferences of a platform, but for instance, say I'll use Zoom as an example, and Zoom is a great company, but Zoom has, an email function and a this and a that. And it's like, tasks, and like that would really require me to, like I said, live inside of the Zoom platform all day, every day. Well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But if I'm a business owner and I'm trying to deliver the very best in customer service, what I do not want is my team having to do what I do on a daily basis and pop in and out of these different point solutions. And when you think about that in the big scheme of how much time that takes to move in between those different point solutions, as opposed to having everything you need right there at your fingertips, when your job, your goal is to deliver the very best in customer experiences and user experiences, the platform move really makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So the good news is you can have the best of both worlds. You can have your cake and eat it. We are open. We have a platform and we cover end-to-end customer experience. That's what the CX automation platform is. You can use just Verint for everything, and we basically cover all your CX needs because it's a very broad platform that's built over many years through a combination of a lot of internal innovation and acquisitions, were areas we found that we had the best offer. But as you mentioned, we're open. So we assume and we acknowledge that most of our customers will have other pieces. They'll have their own telephony, they'll have their own CRM, they might have their own quality or their own WFM, and we're fine with that. So you can have all these other pieces, even point solutions that you love, and work within the Verint platform, and we can connect to that. But we are the underlying platform that can support that. So it's different than just having, I'm just going to go with point solutions and manage it myself. We'll manage it for you. We'll ingest the data from other sources. We'll bring it all together. And we believe that over time, customers tend to expand their footprint within Verint because we have so many other capabilities. So one bot stops being effective, they retire it and they add Verint from there. But we're very open. You can start with just one bot from Verint, and then you're already on the Verint platform. And over time, fill in those gaps and holes. So I love your analogy that organizations are like you, especially organizations that we tend to cater for mid to large organizations that have complexity. They make acquisitions. Sometimes they have a new company that uses a different system. There's no problem. They also have partially on-prem and partially in the cloud. So, we have a lot of customers that are fully in the cloud, but many customers that still have telephony on-prem and other pieces of the platform. And we work with that. So it's not like, if you want CX automation, you have to move everything to the cloud into our platform, and then you'll see the outcomes. No, you can start today, now, with what you have, whatever mixed combination of architecture. We will support that and provide you value immediately with one or two bots, and then over time grow into whatever you'll end up with the future architecture.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that that ethos of meeting customers where they are. We don't require you to just walk away from everything that you've done, everything that you're comfortable with, all that sort of thing. And the process, I believe, that you employ really helps develop and engender trust within customers. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, and I had the opportunity to speak with some of your customers at your event recently, and and they talked about how I was talking with CIOs, and they talked about how this is a big change for our organization. So it was really important for us to do this one thing and then to show what we could make happen with this. And now we're doing this, and now we're looking, we've got people excited. So I do think that meeting customers where they are, which is not something that every vendor does, is really something that is very obvious in sort of, the Verint value prop. I think it's very cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Daniel, my favorite part of any conversation is when we can focus on the customers. I already talked about having the opportunity to speak with a couple of your customers and how great that was. Do you have any examples that you might be able to share with us? And of course, you can anonymize the customers, but how customers are using Verint solutions to increase agent productivity and deliver that holy grail of better customer engagement?
Yeah, I'll give you a few examples from several bots. A few years ago, we launched our wrap-up bot, which is a very simple concept. When LLMs came out, we found that one of the things they do very well is summarize, which was something humans do very badly. So
Right.
agents a lot of time need to summarize a conversation at the end of the call. And we were one of the earlier ones to launch this. We called it the wrap-up bot. And it was about automating the after-call work. And that's an easy way to save time, because call ends, a call might be 5 minutes, but then you might have a minute or two of after-call work. Agents, first of all, it's very draining. Second of all, agents don't do very good because they have to think while instead of serving the customer, they're thinking and taking notes.
Right.
So we've automated that. And we had a customer that said, let's try this on, on 300 agents. And they saw, wow, this is saving even just half a minute on every call. And then they expanded it to 30,000 agents and saved like, I think $70 million of costs. So that's kind of a no-brainer. We have a lot of customers doing that. But the impact is huge, and the turning it on is so simple. So why not start? I'll give you another example that went further than that. Is we launched our Genie bot. So Genie bot, we Verint has a market-leading speech analytics solution. So we transcribe billion calls, and we in 80 different languages. And customers have been getting amazing outcomes for years, but it was still very manual. You need an analyst team to build categories, to listen to calls, to do call studies, and that can take it could take weeks sometimes to do these call studies. But because change is so rapid, now people are tasked to, one, cut costs. So we can't add more analysts, but we want you to do double the analysis or do it twice as fast. That's why we launched Genie. And our approach was, this leverages Gen AI, but it leverages your contact center conversation. So imagine having ChatGPT, but asking it specific questions on the calls that just happened yesterday. So we leverage speech analytics to find the calls about customer churn, and we ask Genie, "Hey, what's driving churn today?
Right.
What can I do? Can you give me a script to help retain customers?" And they'll give me a script to use my coaching bot to pop up, or change my IVA message to say, here, if something happened, here's what you should do. And that's transformative. We just launched this a few months ago, and we have dozens of customers that are just amazed. Early on, we just deployed it, and in 2 days, we had a large global services company find $6.5 million of how they can slightly change their retention and sales script. And in 2 days, they could generate $6.5 million. We had a UK financial services company that found about $5 million they do loan applications. And they found that a lot of the loans, because they take time, get canceled and they lose business. And if they just changed how they position this, they could retain $5 million. We had a utility company that had a huge, agent capacity and savings. We keep seeing this. And then we had a travel company that found how, questions that repeat themselves and generate frustration, how they can improve customer experience and reduce their cost. And it's so easy to just turn this on, and there's low learning curve. If you know how to use any AI, you can use Genie, but it's using the right data. So it's not just asking ChatGPT, how can I improve data? It's based on the conversations you're having, the most relevant conversations.
Right.
So that's the kind of impact we're seeing. Very fast, very easy to adopt, and very kind of addictive. Once you get into it, you can't live without it. And then you want the next spot and the next spot. And that's really our sales strategy. It's been working so far. But it's really not a difficult decision. It's not like, oh, let's build a 3-year plan for how we incorporate generative AI into our business. Our approach is the opposite. Let's turn on GenieBot. And sometimes we do that for free. You know what?
Yeah.
Don't do anything. We'll turn it on for 2 days. You play with it and then come back. And that's exactly what we did with this travel company. They said, we don't have time to do speech analytics. We don't have analysts. We said, you know what? Before you make a decision, let's just turn on Genie. And then they said,
we'll show you.
We'll show you without it, just how much. And it's an easier sales process.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah. And everything that you're talking about and all of the examples that you've given are really showing how you can help organizations shift from that reactive decision-making posture to a predictive, prescriptive decision-making. And I think that is, that's a no-brainer. When you look at bottom line impact, like some of the things that you've discussed, sign me up. I think that's really what people are looking for. And we hear so much in this space. And I know you've heard that MIT study quoted as many times as I have that, 95% of AI initiatives, are failing and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? You're just not doing it right. And so I think that this, this strategy that you have of, as I said, meeting customers where they are, perhaps giving them access to something to show them the impact. And then even one small thing like Genie Bot that can lead to that kind of bottom line impact is like, I mean, I don't have to wait to make that decision. That's an easy one.
It's a very easy decision. It's very low risk. And even if it fails, you fail fast and you learn from it. But the cost is much greater not to try or to wait than to turn something on and see if it works. And our track record on these things is 95% success rate.
That's awesome.
I think the reason why the MIT quote is a lot of organizations are doing these pilots. They're taking fake data, spending a lot of time theorizing, and there's no outcome because it wasn't designed to generate outcome in the first place. So then they said, well, we've played around with this. It
doesn't work.
Here, it either doesn't work or doesn't solve everything, or there's no ROI. Our approach is the opposite. Let's take a real issue. If you have, that we can turn on and measure the outcome, and we will do it in 30 days. And if you don't see outcomes, you don't pay us and you try something different. I love
it. Yeah. Brilliant sales strategy. All right, Daniel, as we wrap this episode, I'm going to ask you to share your best advice to leaders who are trying to get their arms around leveraging data and AI to deliver the very best in customer experiences. What does success look like and how do they get there?
I would say, don't wait. Figure out what your biggest challenge is right now. What's the biggest question you have, and what's the biggest data asset that's unique? Your competitive advantage is not the existence of AI. Everybody has access to AI. Your competitive advantage is data that you have will bring the AI or the bot that solves that. So just think about, I want to increase customer satisfaction. I want to reduce cost. I want to increase sales. Think about that. Think about what data could help with that. And happy to have that conversation, even a consultative conversation about what is available today. Those bots are available. You don't have to build it. It's not a long-term strategy. It's let's turn it on and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, your risk is minimal. The bigger risk, as I mentioned, is waiting
not doing anything,
because your competitors, at least some of them, are already achieving these outcomes. We have customers in every vertical that are achieving AI outcomes. So, and if it succeeds, you're a hero. And you've learned something and you're now an AI expert, and you can bring the next bot. If it doesn't, you've still learned something very valuable without investing a lot of time or money. So either way, it's a win-win. I think that's the advice I would give. Don't wait. The market is moving. The technology is moving. Your competitors are moving. So the biggest risk is not being sure and waiting. It's better to take the risk and turn it on. And if you use a trusted a vendor that already has access to your data, then there's less risk of, compliance. But I think that's really the approach, is try as much as you can, as fast as you can, and focus on the outcomes you want to achieve.
Yeah. And they don't have to be, this huge list. You can just do one thing at a time. So great advice, Daniel. Great advice. Well, that's it for this episode of Experience Matters. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer. Thanks so much for joining us today. Delivering on the CX front is one of the biggest challenges facing organizations today. Maximizing customer engagement, increasing revenue, all the while delivering outstanding customer experiences across all channels, while also keeping costs in line, is no easy task. And none of this can happen without getting the data part of the equation right and leaning into intelligent decision-making. Many, many thanks to my wonderful guest, Daniel Ziv, Global VP of AI and Analytics at Verint, for joining me today. You've been amazing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Shelly. Thanks, everybody, for watching. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.